I feel like I'm like prying open the door even more and trying to get as many people through the door as I possibly can, because even now, like being in these spaces where there's some of like Hollywood's most elite, it still feels really isolating, because it's like a lot of the times I'm like the only queer person or queer person of color, especially like the only Native person.
Hi, I'm Peter Knegt, and I'm here with Devery Jacobs, the star and co-writer of the new film This Place, and also obviously the star of the incredible series Reservation Dogs. Well, it's such a pleasure to meet you. I first saw you on screen in Rhymes for Young Ghouls, which I looked up this morning was 10 years ago this September.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, that's wild for me. It must be really wild for you.
Totally. It's totally wild. It feels like another life ago, but then also at the same time, it feels like 30 seconds ago. And obviously it was directed by the late Jeff Barnaby, who is like a dear, dear friend of mine. But yeah, 10 years ago.
And I read that at the time you were studying correctional intervention?
I was. I wasn't trying to be a corrections officer, although I could like technically be a certified one.
Okay.
It was more so to like get credits to go towards social work, because I figured like if I couldn't pursue my first love of film and TV, then like what the only thing I would want to do otherwise was to be able to help Ngwahue and help Indigenous people.
Well, it seems safe to say now that you can pursue your dream job.
Yes, and give back to the Native Women's Shelter in another way.
Yeah, and then cut to last September and you're back at TIFF, but this time starring in a lovely queer love story, This Place, which you not only star in but co-wrote. Do you want to just talk a little bit about, for folks that might not know, what the film is specifically about and what your character's sort of journey in the film is?
Absolutely. So This Place follows Male and Gawaniosta. Male is a daughter of Tamil refugees who is also a student in university, and she encounters Gawaniosta, who is the character I play, who just got to Toronto in search and in pursuit of her Iranian father, who doesn't know she exists. And so through the story, the past informs their present, their communities and where they're from really influence how it plays out with them today. And it's a love story between both of them, and a journey that could only ever happen in Toronto.
I just moved here and I'm still adjusting to city life, and I'm looking to connect with some family.
What's the matter?
Something is up with you, I can tell.
Can you imagine just being okay with being forgotten or unacknowledged?
Disappearing feels good sometimes.
Do you want to talk a little bit about what drew you to that project? Sort of as it was your first time writing a feature film.
It was the first time writing a feature, first time collaborating with anybody else. It was pre-Reservation Dogs. We filmed it with a talent to watch budget, which is a micro budget, pre-pandemic, and the film This Place just has so much heart for all of us. It touches on each of our communities. I also, as a writer, had infused my queerness into the story, and it was originally with the characters Gawaniosta and Male that they were supposed to be friends, and it just wasn't reading true when we were writing it. And then when I was coming out in my real life and like figuring out who the characters were, it was so clearly a love story.
I want to talk a little bit about the collaborative process that went into that specific project.
Oh my God. VT90 and Gulshan Abdimole are both incredible artists. Like, they are dear friends of mine. I'm so proud to be able to create with them. And originally it was like 7 years ago that Naini had approached me wanting to collaborate on a project. She was talking about when there was the anniversary of the Tamil blockade that they had in Toronto, and recognizing the genocide against Tamil people in Sri Lanka. And there were some conversations she heard activists having of what does it mean for us to protest on stolen land? What does that mean for us not to be in our territory, but to be occupying somebody else's land, while also protesting and advocating for their communities back home? And so it was that initial question and conversation that really sparked inspiration for Naini, and so we talked about ideas of the project, but also like we became really good friends in the process, and Gulshan ended up being brought into the fold, and each of them are incredible talents, and we were able to really lend our voices to each other. We were able to bring our perspectives together, and it was a first feature for all of us in many ways.
Yeah, and I mean, to me, it also felt like a really beautiful film about belonging and sort of the search for belonging, whether that's in a place, as the title sort of literally suggests, but also to a family, whether that's biological or chosen. And it made me think a little bit just about sort of your work recently and the idea of belonging within sort of film and television industries. And I feel like for a very long time, it was very rare for a lot of different people to feel belonging. However, to me, from an outsider's perspective, it seems like you're part of a movement of artists who are sort of taking back their own narratives, finding agency, and working in projects where you're not just acting, you're writing, you're directing, you're producing. Do you feel that that's the case in some of the work that you've been doing lately? Like, do you feel belonging?
I think that's the hope. I think that's the goal. I'm among many artists right now who are intentionally doing that and are trying to carve out spaces. And with the success that I've been able to have in my career, fortunately, I feel like I'm like prying open the door even more and trying to get as many people through the door as I possibly can, because even now, like being in these spaces where there's some of like Hollywood's most elite, it still feels really isolating, because it's like a lot of the times I'm like the only queer person or queer person of color, especially like the only Native person. And so it's a very specific effort that we're doing to get more of our communities in this space and creating opportunities, albeit it's low budget projects. It's still getting people experiences, taking chances on folks who haven't necessarily have the longest resume and the most connections in the industry. And I find that by taking a shot on people from these communities who are incredibly passionate and talented, oftentimes it pays off tenfold and ends up forming careers. So many people who worked on this place, it was their first time either working on a film set or in that position they did. And now people are like often working on television shows and the works. So it's a lot of work, but it's exciting and it's necessary. It needs to happen to be truly inclusive in this industry.
And I mean, I'm so excited for the final season of Reservation Dogs, which I was gutted to find out was the final season. I
know, I can't believe we can talk about it now.
I mean, this must be sort of emotional for you to talk about, but what does it feel like to be leaving that project, which I'm assuming was just sort of like an astounding experience for you?
Oh, it's so bittersweet. It's like every once in a while I'll like break down in like total emo tears over it. But it's because we love the project and we love the story, and we've been able to reach new heights together in telling the story of these 4 kids from Oklahoma.
Glad to be home?
I don't think I can leave this place.
Kind of gets a hold of you, huh?
Could I get my records?
Records?
I'm thinking about going to school.
Can you just tell me what to do?
You know I can't do that. Besides, you made it.
Made it where?
Right where you're supposed to be.
I'm gonna die.
Sterling told us about halfway through the season that this might likely be the last season, and we found out 24 hours before it happened, before it was announced that it indeed was the last season. On the last couple days of set, I was able to give myself closure, and I knew there that I would be leaving Alora on set, and that she would be okay, that her journey was told.
I mean, it wasn't just leaving Alora. In the end, you directed an episode on this new season. You were in the writer's room in the second season. And you must just feel such ownership over this project in many ways. Like, what do you hope its legacy is sort of going forward, sort of in your dreams?
I mean, it was 3 short seasons, but also I feel like we were able to go out guns blazing, where so many times you'll see shows where it's like on its 11th season and you're like, okay, you're really spreading the plot thin here. It's like, it isn't any semblance of what the initial seasons looked like, but I feel like with Reservation Dogs, we were able to leave it as strong, if not stronger, than where we started out. And in terms of the legacy I hope it leaves, I hope that it's just the beginning. I hope that it opens doors, because for a while, we were the only Indigenous series on television that was written, directed, created, and mostly starring Indigenous folks on a mainstream level. So for me, that just shows that there's a gaping hole without the show that needs to be filled with many other Indigenous creatives.
And I know that you're probably being asked a lot about Echo, which I'm sure you can't really say that much about.
Not really.
Anyway, so you have another project that I'm really excited about, which is Backspot, because it's going to be, I assume, the queer cheerleading movie that we've all been waiting for. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? Because I feel like maybe you can a little more than Marvel.
I could probably talk about it slightly more than Marvel. We don't have a premiere date locked yet. We ended up shooting that right before Reservation Dogs season 3 this past spring. And it's honestly some of the work that I'm most proud of as an actor that we've been able to do. I had a chance to work with Evan Rachel Wood, with Shannon Sossaman. Also, it was executive produced by Elliot Page, who was like, Pageboy has been like the most hands-on EPs I've ever encountered, which has just been like unbelievable. And also getting to work with D.W. Watterson, who just seriously has like blown it out of the water with their directing, has been something I'm so excited to be able to share with people, but not just yet.
I mean, I am also excited for Echo, not to say that I wasn't.
Oh my God,
when I
of
saw
course,
Sydney
yeah.
Freeland was directing so many of the, I love
yeah.
Drunk Town's Finest so much. Like that's just
Yeah.
one of the greatest sort of indie career movies of the past 10 years.
I was so happy, especially after working with her on Rutherford Falls and then also on Reservation Dogs, getting to come back for a third project together for Echo was so awesome. We tried to learn sign language. We're still learning. I have more to learn. So
I also just need to say that one of my favorite things to watch, like ever, are the Hollywood Reporter roundtables.
Oh my goodness.
I've seen every single one, and I have to say that yours was definitely an all-timer. You were with Aowa
you.
Debris, Cheryl Lee Ralph, Natasha Leone, so many people that also, you know, we were just talking about sort of the writing, directing, producing. It was just so incredible to watch. I'm just really curious from a fan of that sort of segment, what was that experience like?
I feel, okay, I'll give you the inside scoop. I only learned I was supposed to be on the roundtable maybe like 24 hours or 48 hours before I did it. Somebody had dropped out at the last minute and then I was able to slide in. And so I was really grateful for that. Otherwise I would have been like, if I had known for 6 weeks leading up to it that I would be having conversations with these prolific artists, I would have like freaked the hell out. But it like didn't give me time to think. I was so tired. I had just come from on set. I flew to LA. I was at the table having these conversations and it didn't give me a moment to overthink or second guess myself. And I appreciate that because getting to chat with these incredible, legendary talents was, would have been like really freaking nerve-wracking otherwise. It was great. They're all so inspiring and also kind and professional. And getting to have a conversation with them and sit across from a table with them was it felt like a level up and a place that I was really grateful to be invited to.
Yeah, I mean, you really held your own, and I felt like it was just it was a real love fest. I felt between all of you, like in a way
there was so much mutual respect amongst everyone, which was very, very appreciated.
Well, it was so amazing to have you here today, and I'm so excited for the third season of Reservation Dogs, and I hope that everyone goes and sees this place wherever they can find it, whether it's in a theater or at home.
Yeah, thank you, and y'all go.
3, 2, 1.